Hello and welcome back to the Pleasureful Podcast. This is Lauren. This is part 2 of suppressed feminine energy. So if you did not listen to part 1 on conditioning and why feminine energy is suppressed, be sure and go back and watch the part 1 so you have the background information on feminine energy and why it's suppressed. And to this episode, it's going to be all about the opportunity that we have when we have the awareness of our suppressed feminine energy. What does it look like to then turn on our feminine energy? What does it look like to use our feminine energy? What's the benefit for us? How does it feel? Does it feel good? Does it feel bad? So welcome. If you're newish to my world, you've probably heard part 1, but maybe you found me on social media somewhere, either on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. If you're new in my world, there are opportunities to join the community around feminine energy and building magnetism. I have a Facebook group called Feminine Foundation. I would love for you to join and be in with all the wonderful women who are in there building community through vulnerability. And then I also have other resources that you can access as well. Right now I have a training on 5 ways to use your feminine energy to attract a man. Your feminine energy is all about being in your body. And if you listen to, well, hopefully you did, the first part, I talked about how much our conditioning, or domestication as we might call it, numbs us as women. And that is what blocks our energy. That's what blocks a friend, a potential partner, from being able to feel our true essence. We are energy. We're meant to feel energy, but when we become so numb because we're so of the mind rather than of the body, and especially our heart as feminine beings, people can't feel us, and therefore we're not magnetic. And we just stay on the path that we know rather than allowing ourselves to be open to paths around us. We stay on the predictable survival path. So this is why building your feminine energy, again, we all have masculine and feminine energy. Masculine energy definitely supports our feminine energy. But before we begin to embrace our feminine energy, when we've been so conditioned into our masculine, we're so of the mind, we're in a default masculine autopilot, which is actually wounded masculine tendencies. We're overthinking, overanalyzing. We are competitive. We're outcome oriented, not allowing ourselves to do things if it's not practical, if it doesn't make sense or whatever. We're not allowing ourselves to play and be curious because we think we have to be a certain way. We just suppress our desires, and this dulls magnetism completely. So we've talked about the problem with suppressed feminine energy. Not only does it manifest energetically, does it dull our magnetism, it also manifests physically because that energy isn't going anywhere. So it manifests as physical sensations in our body, which I talked about in the first episode. And then, of course, like external as well, like chaos and confusion and lack of fulfillment and all of those things. So feminine energy is, when it's out of balance, in my own experience, this is when my masculine was running my life. It's probably running your life if this is resonating with you, which really led me to be wildly unfulfilled. That's actually why I called this podcast Pleasureful, was because I got to this point in my life where all of a sudden I realized I had all the things on paper. I did all the things. I did the things that the good girl would do. I identify with the good girl. You might identify with the rebel, but it doesn't matter either way. You're probably going to resonate with this. I identified with the good girl as I had the job. I had the live-in boyfriend. I had the social life. I had the part-time gig on the side of like the yoga teacher, that I looked spiritual and whatever. And I was focusing on my, my mindset and mindfulness and all the things, even though I was wildly disembodied. I just was not an embodied yoga teacher at the time. Now that I know how to embody my energy, I would be a good yoga teacher. But I was a machine, and this is what we become. I was a machine when I was teaching yoga, spitting out the right things to say, I was kind of using my own creativity, but I was so strict and rigid about things. And then that's how I was in life too. Everything is a mirror. The way we do one thing in life is the way we do most things. Very similar. We very, very rarely do we veer off and do things drastically different in a different part of our life. So this is why when I focus on feminine energy in relationships and dating with women, it ripples out into other areas of their life. Because we are actually in relationship with all things in life. So, as I had mentioned, I was so unfulfilled. I realized I had all the things on paper, but nothing felt like I chose it. And so I was like, I'm supposed to be getting pleasure from this, but I'm not. So what's the deal? What am I missing? What's the missing link? And then that's when I realized, especially when I went through a breakup, if you go back to my previous episodes, you can hear kind of that situation, but I went through this huge breakup that blew up in my face. It was only 2 months long, but it was very intense. And it was the biggest mirror for me to see like, oh, I am part of the problem. If I'm the problem or part of the problem, then I can take responsibility for my part in this. And so then I was like, oh, so I'm responsible for my pleasure. Like I thought I did all the things and everybody said I would, everybody, family, friends, whatever, said I would have such a good life. It looked like I had everything that I needed on paper, but none of it was fulfilling. And that's when I realized everything I'd done up until that point was nothing that I chose. And that was the first time where I was like, wow, I have the power to choose. I'm an adult now. So when am I going to give myself permission to start choosing? And that's when I was like, I create my own pleasure in life by going after my desires. And then it just kind of has all become an energetic journey from there for me. Because if you're in my Facebook group, from my trainings, I am a big fan of Joe Dispenza and I'm a big fan of quantum theory. And we are energy. And I realized that this feminine energy was this part of me were these traits and these characteristics that I hadn't been taught. That I had been taught were weak and unproductive and that's not the way we do things. So therefore, I completely disregarded that part of me. And again, it was starting to manifest in my life. Confusion, unfulfillment, relationships unfulfilling. And then, of course, I had physical pain. I had numbness, physical pain in other parts of my body. Those are for other episodes. But finally, it made sense. And so, and especially in my relationships and really in all of life, because it's we're in relationship to everything around us, it becomes a mirror. And so I realized that's when everything started to get an upgrade. So it's no wonder I focused on my feminine energy and owning my desires for romantic relationships that all of my relationships improved. Bringing your feminine energy back online first comes with the awareness. That comes from episode 1, or the first part of this rather, of suppressed feminine energy, was becoming aware of like, oh yeah, if you resonated with that, and like that's me, that's your awareness building. That's why I'm here, is to help you build awareness around what your current reality probably looks like and what it has the potential to be. You don't have to live in resistance. You have to become aware that you're in that resistance and that you get to take responsibility. You get to empower yourself. You've probably felt maybe from time to time, this was totally me, that there must be a better way. And there is a better way to much of what you are experiencing, especially when it comes to dating as well. If you're feeling frustrated and confused and wondering why you're getting into relationships that aren't serving you, and maybe you're staying in relationships too long, and perhaps you're going through, like breakups that hurt, and breakups that you abandon yourself. I talked a little bit about that in episode 1, in part 1 as well. Resistance is like suffering, and you don't have to choose to suffer. Now, that doesn't mean that the resistance or parts of life won't be hard. Yes, there will be pain. Yes, but you can choose awareness so that you don't continually feel pain. Because if you continue to feel pain, that's suffering. But when you choose awareness, you can choose to do something different. You can choose another path. You can say, that was painful, And now I can go do something else about it, or I can go try something else. I talked about swimming upstream and downstream, or swimming upstream in part 1. That's the resistance. When we are doing what society wants us to do, but we're going against our true nature, we're swimming upstream. So once you begin to step into your feminine energy, it gets a little trippy, because now you're no longer creating internal resistance, because you're starting to be more of who you're meant to be. You're starting to turn the lights on your feminine energy. Like, okay, this feels good, but this is also a little scary because this is not a part of me, of my 20 to 30 years of conditioning that I'm used to. And so you're no longer creating that internal resistance. So you start swimming downstream, but now you're going against the grain of society, because society, masculine structure, is masculine oriented, is a lot of what we're taught is information for masculine energy, for men. Please be discerning when you hear information about workouts, about eating, about routines. That is information for men. And so many studies in the world, okay, this is a tangent, but so many studies in the world are just based off of men. They're not based off of women, because women are more complicated, because way more hormones. We're constantly shifting hormones every day. So when someone tells you, you've got to get up at 6 a.m. and work out by 7 and eat, at 8 and da-da-da-da-da-da, that's a routine built for a man, not a routine built for a woman. And I'm going to talk about structure and flow and how those go together for a woman. But much of what we see when it's consistency, rigid consistency, is built for men. Okay, so that was the tangent. But now, so again, now you're swimming downstream. You're feeling good. You're like, okay, I'm embracing my feminine energy. This is liberating. This is good. It's challenging. Yes, there's going to be challenges along the way, because you're going to hit some rocks and bumps along the way. And again, it's also going to be challenging because it's going to be a new muscle that you are exercising, that you're like, okay, this is a new part that I am stepping into for myself. Challenging, but it feels hopeful. And yet, everyone is telling you that you're going the wrong way. Except for those who have also come downstream, which is why I'm here to tell women, to tell you that yes, this is the way. Come downstream. It might not be comfortable, because it's not at this point naturally conditioned within you to operate with your feminine in balance with your masculine. But that's why we are sending more women downstream. That's what we're waking up to, is the opportunity to come downstream, to operate in a way that feels within our nature, that feels good to us, so that we can then build communities and societies that are more in line with feminine energy, that have opportunities for women with feminine energy to operate, so that we can literally things like taking time, taking more time when we go through the birthing process. And, there's a million ways that this could show up. We need more femininity in leadership, feminine energy in leadership. We don't need more women bodies that are in their masculine. We don't need more women bodies in leadership. We need more feminine energy principled people, or at least people who know how to balance feminine and masculine energy. Does that make sense? And yes, I do hope that those are women in feminine bodies. That's why we need more people downstream. Okay, yet again, another tangent, but there was a really good YouTube video that I had watched. If you want the link, DM me, but it was about, we don't need more women people in leadership. We need more femininity in leadership. Okay. So the way when we're swimming downstream is to slow down, is to listen to your body, is to spend time alone and in nature and doing things just for pleasure's sake, not because you have to be good at them or produce an outcome or be perfectionist, none of that. This is embracing the feminine energy traits. Your vulnerability is also another opportunity here It's so powerful. I'm sure you've heard of Brene Brown, who speaks about vulnerability and the power of vulnerability. It's that your emotions, the opportunity of your emotions within your body talking to you, listening, and releasing the stress of swimming upstream for so long. Your body has to unleash those blocked clogs and areas. Your body is tired and she's healing and forgiving. And that's why this is a process. This is an opportunity for your internal validation, the perception of yourself. Your own self-love is so crucial to how you experience everything in life. Accepting all parts of yourself, and especially those that don't live up to society's standards, because those are a lie. It's allowing yourself unconditional love. You're allowed to be exactly as you are. You will never be perfect, and that is perfect. This opportunity is that you're meant to be sensitive and not numb. That your intuition and your feelings and your emotions are guiding you. Using that as an opportunity. Again, not always using your mind. Allowing yourself to also use your body as a point of reference for decision making. Does this feel good or does this not feel good? Because we haven't been taught how to listen to our bodies or to listen to our intuition. It's such an opportunity for us. All of this builds trust within our feminine energy. Trusting that swimming downstream is, in fact, the way. Trusting that even when it doesn't feel awesome, you're still trusting the process. Trusting that when people question you, good Lord, people are questioning me on my path. And I'm still staying true to this process because it feels so good. Even feeling the quote unquote negative emotions, I don't even know if I'd call them negative, but like the lesser idolized emotions, feeling sadness, feeling like the deep pain, feeling grief. Actually, they're so beautiful. Oh my gosh, just a quick story. Last night, I confided in my brother about something. And of course, I had put on this like masculine front. And I was on the phone with him and I was asking him about something and I was putting on this masculine front like I knew what I was talking about and got it all figured out. And then I just got to this point where I was like, what am I doing? This is such a mask. Because I could feel it in my body. I could feel that I was tense. I could feel that I was just like, I wasn't authentically expressing. And then I was like, look, I got to tell you what's up for real. And I just started crying before I could even get it out. And in that moment, he was like, whoa. He was like, he went into nurture mode and he was like, it's okay. You can tell me. What is it? And I allowed myself to be vulnerable. I allowed myself to be seen. And I told him, like, what did I say? I said something like, I don't need you to yell at me. I don't need you to, fix this or whatever. I don't want to be judged. I was like, I would appreciate your strategy and your expertise. And oh my Lord, did he step up to the plate? And it actually released such an energetic block in me to be able to confide in him. This is what it did for me. Feminine energy is first being vulnerable, which then builds connection, which then creates community. And I invited him into that vulnerability to see me in that way. And I told him what I needed, that I needed strategy. And he was able to deliver the strategy to me. And then just this like relief washed over me that I'm like, I no longer have to do this alone. that someone has my back, that I have this support, that I'm not asking them to do it all. I'm just asking to be supported in this. I'm asking that, to not have to do it alone, because as women, we don't have to carry the burden of doing it alone. As we've been too defaulted into our masculine, we get this individualistic mindset of like, I've got to do it. I've got to have it figured out. I've got to prove myself. And in that moment, I just let my walls down and I was like, I have nothing to prove. I want to be seen as vulnerable. I'm willing to go there. It could backfire on me, but I trust that I've got me regardless, even if this person doesn't accept me in this moment. This is what we've got to do in relationships as well, to let our walls down, to come from love, to come from our heart, to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. Okay, so I don't want that story to go on too long, but that's just an example. And today I've had so much energy, and you know what's wild is with this energy, I got on Instagram this morning. Of course, I'm like always on my stories, and I'm doing some magnetism things, tips for magnetism. And 2 women messaged me, 2 separate women, they've been in 2 different countries, messaged me and was like, we're like, your energy lately has been so inspiring, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, because I released a crazy energetic block the night before. That of course now there's room for more energy to come in. So all of this, embracing feminine traits, stepping into your feminine, all of this is building trust with your feminine energy that has been suppressed for so long. And when you suppress it, we begin to disown it. We begin to dishonor it. And so trusting, again, that swimming downstream is the way. More and more of us, more women are embracing their feminine energy, swimming downstream, showing others that this is the way. Yes, it's going to be challenging. Yes, everyone's going to tell you you're crazy, but it is the way. Every time you trust your feminine energy, you become more you. Your authentic expression is probably the most vulnerable thing you can do in this lifetime, because we have such a fear around rejection. And that's okay. And I'm still learning to lean on my vulnerability and to unlock and unleash my expression a little bit more and a little bit more, just like in that story I told you where I simply confided in my brother last night and I allowed him to see me as emotional. And I didn't have to show him like I have it all together. I'm not competitive against him. I could be, but I don't want to be, because I want to create connection. I want to build strength in community. I want him to support me, and I want to be able to support him. I want him to be able to trust me, because feminine energy, embracing your feminine energy, not only builds your magnetism, but it also builds your integrity. So you don't go from 0 to 100 stepping into your feminine energy. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a day-by-day journey. It's permissioning yourself into these traits over and over again. Like I said, I just practiced this last night. And I've been doing this now for over a year, if not 2 years. Practicing this, refining this, realizing like, oh, what is this? What is this that? Or is, becoming more aware. You're coming into right relationship with your feminine energy. You're unlocking what's been suppressed and finally expressing all that's been suppressed. Finally doing that is the greatest liberation. And I have been so fulfilled from having less, from doing less, and just being more me. And what do I mean by having less? Having less, having fewer friends, but stronger connections. Doing less, having less of a social life, and spending more time with me, because I'm not focused on the external validation of I've got to be here and there and everywhere all at once because it says something about me. No. I get to feel me. When I feel more of me, when I have time and space for that, I become more me. And this is the opportunity for you as well. The first thing I tell women when they want to start dating, or when they are dating, or they're wondering why they're single, number one reason why you're single is because you're doing too much. You're not slowing down. You're busy. Being busy, keeping busy, especially after a breakup, does not build your magnetism. You need to slow down. You need to take time for yourself. You need to learn how to be with yourself to build your awareness. Again, feminine energy affects all relationships we are in life, and we are in relationship to everything around us. So here's how your feminine energy builds your magnetism and your ability to attract, relationships, and how your feminine energy affects and shows up in relationships. So like love is the highest frequency that you can be. I literally think our purpose here on earth is to return to love. There's even a book called A Return to Love, and that is such a great book. And every day is a process in learning to love yourself. Because when you love yourself, when you are loved, you feel bliss, you feel whole, you feel freedom. These are really high frequencies, energetic frequencies. This is what creates your magnetism. So the more self-love you give yourself means that you're not judging yourself. The more self-love you have, the less you're judging. Therefore, you're not judging others. And you're creating more magnetism with your self-love, because love is a high frequency. It's a very high frequency, the highest. It's magnetic. As women, our positive pole is our heart. We literally have breasts protruding from us so that we give love from our heart center. Men receive love through their heart, and women receive love through their yoni. So literally, when we as women give ourselves more self-love, we become more magnetic. So we've got to prioritize ourselves and fill ourselves up first so that we can fill ourselves with this love, so that we have time to give ourselves love, self-love, so we have time to stop judging ourselves. You must first show up for yourself unconditionally. And I call it being obsessed with yourself. Believing in your desires so that you are fulfilled first. Taking steps toward your desires. When you do that, you no longer abandon yourself for the sake of people pleasing someone else. For the sake of feeling like you have to fulfill a role, the good girl, or whatever role, or an expectation. You don't have to fill expectations because someone else said you should. You're no longer buying into the fear of not being enough, of not being worthy, because you love yourself so much that those are already givens. Givens? Yes, given. Those are already given. You know that you are worthy. You know that you're enough because you love yourself. And sure, you might question it some days, but then you bounce back. You remember, oh yeah, I am love. That's the work every day. That's the practice, remembering that you are love, that you give yourself love, that you don't need to look for it externally. That's why that saying, everything you have is within you, is so true. We actually don't need anything. We just haven't been taught how to embrace and strengthen the power of knowing that we have everything within us and how to feel it, because our feminine energy is missing. I remember when that saying used to be so foreign to me. I used to be like, what the heck do they mean I have it all within me? If I can't see it outside of me, how do I know that I have it within me? And this is trusting in the process, trusting the unknown, because you have to believe it before you see it. And that's also part of manifesting. So when women first use their feminine energy for themselves, practicing self-love leads to personal strength. It leads to embracing other feminine energy qualities. This is how a woman becomes magnetic, because she starts practicing self-love and she starts leaning into desires and she starts, feeling her worthiness, and she all of a sudden is just being herself, not seeking anything. And this is how you draw a man in who loves you just as much, because you love yourself fully. How you find a man who reveres you just as much as you revere yourself. How you find a man who's thoughtful and caring and all the things that you want, patient and loving. It's because you're those things first. Your ideal partner is a reflection of you. Your vulnerability and your emotions and your acceptance, your ability to slow down and curiosity and playfulness all lead you into your feminine energy, which builds your magnetism. Those who are in their feminine energy, no longer attached to the idea of a man because she loves herself so much that she's not in lack. There's no void to fill. A woman in her feminine energy trusts that if one man doesn't meet her where she wants to be met, that there will be another one. Because she trusts that that which is for her will not pass her by. This is quite literally what happened to me when I got to Mexico and there was an eligible guy and I had to tell him my desires because I'm used to, at this point, telling men what my desires are. When I got to Mexico, I decided I want a man who can show me he wants to be my friend first and he wants to be patient with me, that I don't have to move faster than my body wants to move. And I told this to this man, and yet things still moved a little bit faster than I wanted to. I told him I wanted to be friends first, and he was trying to make things progress pretty quickly. And then, he was still trying to push things along, and I continued to take time for myself. And then by the time that I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to perhaps pursue, the next step, he was gone. He was not interested. He couldn't be patient. So then I was like, okay, it hurt. I was like, I just opened to this man. I opened to the idea of him, but I was remembering, okay, I don't need to attach myself to the idea of him. I also don't need to make him not wanting me mean anything about me. I had to let go of those. It was a practice. I had to let go of those. I felt the emotions around it. I was like, I can feel myself like wanting to try to, make it this thing. I could feel the story wanting to be alive, the story of like, and that's just the pain body. That's just the pain of of when I felt that in the past. I could feel that as a tendency, that used to be the way I was conditioned. That used to be the way that I would operate. And that still kind of comes up. It still kind of comes up as and then I just have to realize and remember and be grounded in my beliefs of no, I love myself so much. I'm not in lack. There's no void to fill. If he's not adding to my life, he doesn't need to be in my life. So I started to remember, I did remember, I was like, I don't need to attach to him. And then I trusted, okay, if not him, then someone else. And he's just evidence that I can connect with someone who is the things that I am looking for, are the desires that I am looking for. Like I said in part one, I said, I would desire a man who wants to live in multiple countries, who's bilingual, that I can build a bilingual life with and, travel and whatnot. And so I just trusted. And what ended up working out was, ended up being his roommate who I had met through this whole process. And it was so discreet to me. This man was so patient, just wanted to be my friend. We would meet up and go to volleyball. It was very low key. I was doing touristy things. I would invite him to come along because he told me he was bored of this town. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be doing some fun things. So if you're just around and hanging and looking for something to do, come along. And he also only only speaks Spanish. So I was like, great, a great way for me to practice my Spanish. And lo and behold, we started to connect on other levels. We were so vulnerable with each other that I had no filter on. I don't even know what he was thinking. I think he's just this way. I think he's just a genuine person. That's who he is. And I trusted that someone else would come along. And sure enough, someone else came along that just felt so good. So when this is a big thing too, when we're looking to be in relationship, like I said, you have to, or I was dating with my desires. A feminine energy will no longer build resentment in relationship because she's voicing her desires. When you have your feminine energy in practice, you're voicing your desires because you're showing up for yourself. You'll be able to trust a man because you trust yourself. You know that you can't control anyone and that you can only truly trust yourself because of that control. You can't control someone else. So you can really only truly trust yourself to stand up for yourself and to set boundaries when needed, and that you're in charge of your energy and your reality. That is using your feminine energy. And a woman in touch with her feminine energy also uses her emotions as information. You no longer suppress your true feelings because you allow yourself to be vulnerable. Like I said, whether it could be with a friend, it could be with a partner, it could be with your brother, it could be with a family member. The way that I regularly practice this is that when someone asks me how I am, I literally tell them if I'm sad. Because I can still function when I'm sad. I can still go out and play volleyball if I'm sad. But if someone asks me how I am, I just say I'm sad. Because my energy might be different. My energy might be a little bit lower. So it's important for people who are around me to know where my energy is at. Because then they can either support or also choose in their own sovereignty to also not be around me if that's going to affect them. And so emotions are a large part of being magnetic, because being magnetic doesn't mean that you're feeling good and high vibe all the time. It means that you're in integrity with how you feel and that you are honest about your emotions, that you are not suppressing a part of yourself. That's magnetic. Because that's when someone can trust you, when you truly tell them what's going on within you. If you're feeling good, great. If you're feeling sad, if you're feeling confused, if you're feeling down, let people know. You don't have to take their advice necessarily, because maybe you're not asking for it and you're just asking to be seen in your feels, and that's okay. Or if you want to ask them for strategy, ask. Just like I did with my brother. So while a woman is embracing her feminine energy, she also is having to embrace a healthy masculine, which looks like being focused and present, but not distracted, which is actually balanced by her feminine slowing down. So your masculine is focused and present, but you're not distracted because you're slowing down and you're choosing fewer things to be focused and present on as you're slowing down. You're using your mind, but you're also using your body to help you make decisions. This is the balance of the masculine and feminine. You're staying grounded and supported with your structure. Basic needs are your structure. So basic needs that you need to feel taken care of. Some things that I do to set structure are like food prep, making sure that my body will be taken care of during the week by the food that I have available to me. Making sure that I run errands so that I can relax throughout the week rather than being chaotically scattered. If I was going to the grocery store and having to run errands every day, I wouldn't have ample time to sit and relax or to process things. So I stick to a basic structure of a day. Like I said, rigidity of structure is masculine energy. But what I recommend for especially a morning routine, have options for what your morning routine could be. It's not that you have to get up at 6 a.m. and work out every day. Maybe some days you do, perhaps during the time that you're ovulating, because that's when you probably have the most energy. But, when maybe you didn't get a good night's sleep, or maybe it's just, nearing your time of the month for you to bleed, you wake up and you feel a little bit tired. So, okay. Well, your options then are, maybe you're going to journal or read a book or go for a walk, something like that instead. Having options for listening to your body about how it is that you want to start your day, what it is that feels nourishing versus forcing yourself to I've got to go to the gym today. If I don't, I'm a failure. No more of that. So finding that basic structure of your masculine so that you can support your feminine. Embracing your feminine energy is not all about being just in your feminine. Of course, it's bringing it into balance with your masculine so you can be in integrity with who you are, how you feel, and what you want. And that makes you magnetic because you're not afraid to get it. You're finally claiming what it is that you want because you're not afraid to get it. And this is how you attract a man to you and build a relationship that you love because you know what you want. And there's a million topics I could dive deeper into, but I'll do that in future episodes. So again, as I said in the part 1 as well, If something in here has piqued your interest, or you have a question, or you want more examples, DM me on Instagram. If you don't have Instagram, join the Feminine Foundation Facebook group. The link will be in the show notes, and you can ask me on there. I also send out my podcast in a weekly email, so you can reply to that email with questions or future topics that you want me to address. And again, I have more resources like how to start tapping into your feminine energy. I'm going to be building meditations for feminine energy. There's also going to be an exciting thing coming in 2023 around a membership for working on your feminine energy consistently so that you can attract in the man that you desire. Because it all starts with relationship to yourself so that you can come into a relationship with someone who mirrors who you are. Okay. So, and again, if you want to dive deeper into your feminine energy, if you're like, I am ready to meet the man that I desire, I want to stop using the apps, I want to go full on into my feminine magnetism, message me on Instagram. I have coaching programs and offerings going on all the time. And if there's something that you're desiring, if there's a certain level of support that you're desiring, let me know. Because I'm available to you. And I want women to start swimming downstream. And you deserve to be supported. You don't have to do it alone. Because it is confusing. And you can do it alone. That's okay too. Please be on the join me here on the podcast, listen weekly, so that you can see how this shows up, so that you can become aware of how it looks in your life. And if you want to move through it together, if you want to, it's not really to get through it faster, but if you want to it's really about building your awareness more readily, really building your awareness quicker. Message me so that you can know about the coaching offerings that I have available. Okay. So thanks for listening, babe. If you found this helpful, it would mean so much to me if you could leave me a review. If you're listening to this on the podcast, comment below if you are on YouTube, or rate this if you're on Spotify as well. And also, even more so than that, send this to a woman who you think could benefit from hearing it. Because maybe it's a friend, or maybe it's your mom or your sister, or maybe it's a coworker. Knowledge is power. But the knowing of your feminine energy is empowering. It changes your life. So when you share, you empower other women in your life. Okay, babe, thanks again for listening. Join the community of feminine women, either on Instagram or join our Feminine Foundation Facebook group. Go be magnetic, and I'll be back soon.